All right, well, welcome, Dr. Mayakin Ziegler, Monarch Family Chiropractic, and here tonight for the workshop. And if there is a workshop that is, I think, very tangible as far as what we do on a daily basis, it is this workshop for anybody who is sitting at a workstation. The stats around long-term or long periods of sitting are really dire. We're going to jump into them in just a second. But I think it's really tangible to all of us because the majority of the workforce, they're sitting in front of a workstation. A lot of people, which is great, have standing desk options, but they're not using them. And so today I want to go through what's the best setup you can do to set yourself up to succeed in terms of your body positioning during your day when you are at your workstation. A couple things here. I know that you can't necessarily see this for those of you who are online, but this here is Anna. Can you see this very clearly in there? No, that's too bad. Anna is not so pretty. So this was a study done out of the UK, or a report titled The Work Colleague of the Future. And a team of health experts surveyed data submitted by over 3,000 office workers in France, Germany, and the UK. And this is what they found in terms of what the future workforce will look like as far as
Sparky was on the killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm on the, oh, sorry. That's okay. Okay, sweet.
and so the office worker of the future has a hunched back, eczema, pale skin, varicose veins, bloodshot eyes, rotund stomach, swollen limbs, hairy nose and ears, is that sounding really pleasant or aesthetically pleasing? I'm going to have to put this out for when you guys are in the office next, because Emma is not so pretty. She's not pretty. And why should we care? I mean, I find that, a lot of people think, oh yeah, I got to take care of my teeth because it's on their face, right? The smile's on their face. They've seen their teeth all day long. If your spine was on the front of your body or on your face, you'd probably care more. We'd probably be concerned if we start to notice posture that's looking like this, but we don't see it because we're always looking this way. If we are sitting for extended periods of time, it pulls us forward. And based on what we're seeing with Emma, you can look at this rounding or humpback. It's like the humpback of Notre Dame. Not pretty. And so this is what reports are showing that the future of, office worker will look like. And it's no way, right? And we're always looking at, well, that's what it looks like from the outside. What is it telling us from the inside? And just so you know, sitting is killing us, period. This is a study done, this is from 2010, okay? Out of the American Cancer Society, the American Cancer Society published a study in the American Journal of Epidemiology. They followed 123,000 individuals. There were 69,000 women, 53,000 men for a 13-year period. And this is in 1993 to 2006. And they found that women who were inactive and sat over 6 hours a day were 94% more likely to die in that time frame than women who sat for 6 hours or less and led a more active lifestyle. I mean, that's like 100%. 94 is pretty dang high. So those are really the golden numbers that I share with people in terms of sitting. First of all, find out how long are you sitting in a day-to-day time frame. And don't just think about office work. Don't just think about when you're at your workstation, but think about commute time. Think about any type of social activity that you're doing, any entertainment that you're doing that puts you in front of a screen, whether it's an iPad, a phone, a TV, a computer. Because take into account all of those hours that you're sitting, and that's your number. And you're going to want to, over time, shave that number off. right? Because you want to get to 6 hours or below, because it's not good in terms of the statistics. If you are sitting 6 hours a day or more and leading a sedentary lifestyle, 94% more likely to die as a woman. A man, better, at 48% more likely to die. That's like, half, right? It's pretty still a significant number. So we're going for physically active and sitting less than 3 hours a day. So if you find that your number is, man, I'm sitting for 12 hours a day, goal is not, oh, let's get you to 3 tomorrow. It's how over time can you prepare your body to be standing and moving and on your feet during your day, right? And some people will ask, well, what's the best position? And I will say the best position is your next position, because you were meant to move. Your body was meant to move. The more sedentary you are, the less movement you have over time. When you have less movement, then you go into a posture. And what I tell people is you are intensely training your body on a day-to-day basis, intensely, for hours on end, So if you're sitting for 10 hours a day, how are you sitting? What repetitive movements are you using? If you're an athlete, you will get this. You train to an intensity, it wires your body into a pattern, right? And so it's really hard to get out of those patterns. So you need to transition to that. There is something called sitting disease. Okay, sitting disease. This is 2008. Again, these are old numbers. So I can't imagine them getting better in the last 15 years, because we're sitting more. Everything is around technology. But sitting disease. So our modern sedentary lifestyles, both at home and in the workplace, are costly for us and our employers. So in 2008, Vanderbilt University studied 6,300 people, and they estimated that the average American was spending 55% of their waking time in sedentary behaviors. In the car, at work, in the car, at home. And it was making a drastic impact on our health. Excessive sitting impacts our metabolic system, which breaking that down means obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, depression, and a cascade of other health ills, and everyday malaise, which is fatigue, that come from what scientists have named as sitting disease. So it's a big problem. So that is really what today is about, is how can we set you up to succeed with, first of all, if you have to sit, what's the best workstation setup for sitting? And secondly, how can you set yourself up to succeed by getting out of that posture? So I've got my workstation here that we are going to use. And let's just start with, if you're sitting at work or you have a workstation at work, okay? I have a chair. Now, let's just talk about chair situations. This is not the ideal chair, but first of all, when you're looking at chairs, we're good seeing the whole body here. When you look at your chair, first of all, you want to make sure that your knees aren't up here, right? Or you're not up here. This chair is probably still a little too low for me. You want around 90 degrees or a little bit greater than, in terms of where your knees are. And when you're sitting, you can think about having a stacked posture, right? So a lot of times I tell people you can have a lumbar roll, whether at your workstation or in a car. You can sit that lumbar roll that helps support your lumbar spine right behind you. So when you have that, you stack the hips, you stack the shoulders, you stack the head. Okay, it's a nice position. How many of us are in this position? Yeah, very rarely. But that's where I say the best position is the next position, because we shouldn't be in this posture for very long. But anyway, if you're going to be sitting in a chair, you want to make sure it has a good lumbar support. And you're going to want to make sure that it's not too high or too low to support your structure. Okay. Now, let's talk about desk. Okay. So when it comes to the desk, you're going to want to make sure your elbows are not resting at, I don't know, a nice obtuse angle. Go back to down. Meaning greater than 90 degrees. But you want just a slight bend in your elbows. And you want your wrists resting. You don't want your wrists up here. You don't want them down here. Again, we're looking at what is repetitive in nature. What are you doing all day long? And if you're here or if you're here, that's going to take a toll on those wrists. So you want a nice greater than 90-degree bend in your elbow. You want the desk level to be where you're resting comfortably here. And that's the same with standing. Sitting, standing, any position you're in. Okay. Now, next, how far away you are meant to be from this computer, there's a measurement for it. So you take, the screen size, and usually that's the diagonal. So if this is 17 inches, ideally you are 17 inches from the screen. Now this can be a problem when you have 2 monitors or 3 monitors, right? Because you're taking into account this type of, length, and then you're sitting this far back, right? You're like, well, can you even do anything from here? So already when we're talking about the ergonomics and what's appropriate for your body positioning, you're going to see that there is really no way you could ever do this perfectly in our modern world, because most people have 2, sometimes 3 monitors. Okay. But again, so should be the length of distance you are from your screen is the same size as that diagonal, okay? And you want your monitor slightly leaning back. So you don't want it vertical or, obviously this way you can't see it. You want a slight lean back. So it's not completely vertical, but slightly obtuse. We have fun here.
Gonna keep it.
So slightly larger than that 90 degrees. And I will say there is a hierarchy here. We will always look at how are you supporting your neck as opposed to your wrists. So ideally, your gaze is like looking at this, I would say upper 2/3, you're in line with that here. So you can see if I'm using a laptop, where ideally it would be good to have it here, okay? But that puts my wrist up here, right? So that's where an external monitor is often nice, because you can put the keyboard where it's meant to be and then put the monitor where it needs to be. Okay? Now, the other thing is what's going on with your feet down here. Ideally, you have the feet flat on the floor, or you can have, like I talk about, a turned over garbage can or something, where you actually turn something over. This is too high. You can rest here at a time, and that really comes into play when you're standing at a standing desk and you're kind of resting this way. Not a great garbage can for it. But feet are ideally flat on the floor, okay, as you're working. Now let's talk standing desk. Not that it's going to be that much different, but a lot of times people think they have to spend a lot of money for a standing desk. And I will tell you, based on what we know in terms of how stressful sitting is to your body, it is worth the investment, period. Like, it is worth the $200 to get a standing desk. Like, I'm just going to drill that into you, because your health and your body are worth it. The longer you're sitting, the faster you're moving towards death in a short period of time, right? What was it? Women, 94% of us dying. If we lead a more sedentary lifestyle, we're sitting 6 hours a day or more, compared to those who are sitting 3 hours or less and more active, right? So, so let's just bring this up to, so standing desk. You can spend a lot of money on a standing desk, or you don't have to spend a lot of money. There's an IKEA desk right over here, kids desk. Can you see that in the video? Yeah, there's an IKEA desk if you've been here. Maybe you don't mind rotating it. I know people who spent $15 on this IKEA desk and put it directly on top of the desk and use that as a standing desk. I know people who stacked books, to get you standing. But again, you're going to want to think about the next, what's the best position? The next position. So it's not like you're going to be standing, you know, for the duration. You're going to think about how can I move while I'm working, right? So again, I don't think there's any excuses. My husband's been looking for a standing desk for 2 years. I'm like, I'm going to pick out a standing desk for you because you're killing yourself sitting down there looking at 2 monitors. I've seen his workstation setup. He doesn't listen to me. Sorry, honey, but he won't listen. He won't watch this anyway. So anyway, so let's just bring this up here. Dr. Kristen's got this really great standing desk here. I can get it to work. Up here. And we'll go there. So when you're standing, again, this is too low for me, but you want wrists here and you want this higher up, tilted back so you can see the monitor appropriately. Now, when you're standing, that's where it's nice to have something to rest your feet on. It's also nice to have a mat. So you can get one of those fatigue mats, which is great. There's people who have treadmill desks. For me, it's, okay, how can you move from sitting to standing or maybe even being on the floor where you're constantly adjusting your body? Ideally, you're doing posture interruptions every 15 minutes. Meaning, if you find yourself in a posture for longer than 15 minutes, you need to interrupt it, okay? Some people think the gold standard is every 30 minutes or every hour. Oh, I have the alarm going off every hour to move. Well, you need to be moving much more frequently than that, right? So a posture interruption is just that. It doesn't mean you need to do 3 sets of push-ups, right? It's just interrupting the posture. So if you're sitting, maybe you stand, maybe you do a stretch or a spinal hygiene movement, go through cervical ranges of motion, and you get back into it. Or you think about adding something like, you know, I'm gonna add a vestibular disc from where I'm sitting, right? Or you go from sitting to standing, then you want to go back to sitting, you're gonna add a vestibular disc on your chair, and this allows you to move. The great thing about a disc like this or a stability ball is that you may not notice that you're moving as you're working, but we actually find that your brain has to engage your stability musculature and your structure as you move. So it kind of keeps it ding ding, keep working, keep moving, right? Movement is life. So I actually really like vestibular discs. I like stability balls. And they find kiddos who have the option to use stability balls in, you know, classrooms are more productive, are able to concentrate more, just because they're able to get excess energy up. So it can help with some productivity there, right? Now, other things as far as your workstation setup. I love external monitors, meaning you just have an extra monitor, especially if people use a lot of laptops, they can, you know, put whatever's on the laptop on their external monitor. That way they're not just, you know, set to use this and just have the screen. Like you can use the keyboard or get an ergonomic keyboard that's appropriate, and then put the screen where it works for you. The other thing, this can be really challenging. I've had a few people take me up on this, is how can you get out of your repetitive movements and patterns? And it's shifting things or changing where they are on your desk. And so if you do use 2 screens, how can you, if you're always using one program on one screen, how can you switch it, right? It's making you use a program over here. Maybe you use this program pretty regularly. You're switching it from going on the right side 1 month, putting it on the left side. Maybe you use the mouse on the right side all the time, use it on the left. Maybe you always go into the printer one time, you know, somewhere. Put the printer where you have to go walk and get it, right? Really change up your workstation setup so that you're not continually doing repetitive movements all the time. Does that make sense? This is, I know you guys can't see this on the screen, but this is one of the best workstation setups I've seen from somebody. So he's got a laptop that he uses that's closed. I don't know where it is here, but he's got a laptop that he uses. And he'll sometimes put this up here, laptop there, but then he'll also put it on this screen here. And he's got a keyboard where it's appropriate for his wrists. And if he's got the monitor up high enough, because he's a taller guy, where he's looking at it, he's up with 2/3, so he doesn't have to be here or here. If you look at his chair, so his chair is actually, he's got this, I don't know, a half dome here that he can sit or rest on it, but it'll move. Or he can just pull it away and not even need a chair. This is a sitting desk, so it goes down, it goes up. So if he wants to pull up the chair, he can do that. And he's actually shifted around and changed things. So he's shifted this, I think, to the other side, put the mouse on the other side, he plays with it in terms of, where it goes. But he is at a desk like 8 to 10 hours, sometimes more a day. And anybody will tell you that, or if you've experienced this on your own, anybody who starts working here, we are on our feet all day. So there's definitely a transition of, oh my gosh, it's a lot to go from majority of a work time frame to standing all day and moving your body. And then it takes, I think maybe a couple weeks to where it's like, oh, okay, it feels good to be moving and standing again. And then it's like, oh, I don't do very much sitting. And so, and not to say that you can't do any work on the ground. If you have a laptop, you can always grab a pillow, right? And you can be on your knees, setting something here. You can be in a lunge position. I like the lunge position. Switch those out. If you ever see me adjusting and I'm at the head of the table, I'm sometimes at a lunge, I'm sometimes here, I'm sometimes squatting down. It just feels good to get movement and opening up to your hips, right? You can even sit here, put laptop on the couch. Anything to get movement and change of position and posturing throughout the day. Again, we talk about the best ergonomic setup, but as you've learned, really there's no way it'll ever be perfect. And so being in those postures for long periods of time is really detrimental to your health. And so, that's where we do a lot of spinal hygiene movements and exercises that we teach you, or workshops to say, okay, how can you get out of that desk? How can you get more movement? Because everything pulls you forward. I don't know if you want to do this with me right now, but just round out, take a deep breath with this with you. First is take a deep breath, open up your chest, bring your shoulders back, take a deep breath. Very different, right? That is an immediate movement you can do to show what's happening when you're here. If it's affecting your lungs and your ability to breathe, it's affecting everything else. And what we know is, this was a study, I'll have to find it, was that if you are older, you have a hyperkyphotic curve like this, hyper curves through your thoracic spine, and you couple that with a respiratory disease. It could be pneumonia, bronchitis, it could be asthma, COPD. You are 144%, that's more than 100%, 144% more likely to die of that respiratory disease with this posture. And I go back to, what the heck does Emma look like? Doesn't that look good, right? It is terrifying. This sick posture is a sick person on the inside. So the more we're here, the more you're likely much healthier. That's what we do all day long. We put movement into a spine. Movement is life. You have appropriate information going to the brain. That means the brain can handle more stress, more demand on the system, right? So if there's anything that you've learned tonight, is that yes, we can go through what to do, but there is no perfect setup. It's you moving throughout the day in different postures in this different positions. Do a walking Zoom meeting. I know there's a lot of people who are on Zoom all day long. Go for a walk, So anyway, I've got handouts here that help support, go bullet by bullet on what to do in terms of setting up your most ergonomic, best setup for the desk. I'm happy to hand these out to you if you come to the office. But the biggest thing is just get moving, period. The time is now, right? There's never, ever a greater time that was important. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. If you have a workstation set up that you want to snap a picture of and you want, Dr. Kristen and I to just check it out, see if we can give you any type of recommendations or changes, we're happy to do that. But know that there are limitations, period. If you know of anybody who doesn't know what you know, who is experiencing life less than, please bring them to a workshop, bring them to an appointment. We want to grow our community, because when our community grows, we know that our community is healthier, more vitalistic, less demand on our healthcare system, which is already, got a lot of demand on it. So we want to keep people as healthy as possible for as long as possible. And we were meant to be healthy, right? So appreciate you. If you have questions, I'll stop the recording. Happy to answer those. But otherwise, so glad you're here.